Okay, please follow the guidance in this revision session for the 3 questions that you are going to be asked to answer in class. Now, this is just a mid-topic assessment, so it's practicing the use of the knowledge that you've learned on the landscapes topic so far. And it's important that we see how you are able to take the different ideas in answering the questions and explain your thoughts. So let's have a look at each question. What you might want to do is, after listening to my instructions on each question, you might want to take a few little notes down, maybe some revision notes. You might want to use the Google Revision website for the Geography Department that's available in your Google Classroom. That will also help show you how you might want to answer these. And then learn your answers, so when you come to actually sitting in class and have to answer these 3 questions, you pretty much know what you want to write. So if we look at question 1, you're being asked to explain, so that's give reasons for the formation, so that's how something is made, of one landscape feature you've studied. Now, this is a very general question, so it could be any of the landscape features, both from the glaciation landscapes part of the topic or the coastal landscapes. So you might choose to do the corrie, the arête, the pyramidal peak, or the U-shaped valley, and those were glaciated landscape features. Or you might choose to do the cliff, the headland and bay, the natural arch and stack and stump, or the spit, which were the 4 features from the coastal part of the topic. Once you've decided which landscape you would like to write an answer to, revise your answer. So what's important when you think about a landscape feature being shaped is that you can tell me what it was like to start with, then you can tell me about some processes involved in the creation of that feature. So if it was a corrie, for example, it might be the glacier does plucking and abrasion. You might even want to tell me what plucking and abrasion were. If it was a cliff, for example, you might tell me that the cliff is getting attacked at the bottom because of abrasion, hydraulic action, and solution. And you then might want to tell me what those things are. Once you've told me about the role of the processes, you've then got to tell me what those processes do to create the feature, and then what's left after the feature has been formed. Okay, so decide which one you feel most comfortable writing an answer to, and you will be asked to write rather than draw a diagram. Learn your answer and be prepared to write a paragraph using all of the ideas that explain the answer. You'll find in your assignment the written answers are the ones where we have to replace all of the red question marks with keywords. So that's the kind of, that's where you need to go looking in the assignments that you did for each of these. So that's question 1, only 4 marks. Hopefully, and you should be aiming to be able to get 4, especially because you've got the freedom to choose the one you want to write about. Right, let's have a look at question 2. So in question 2, we get what's called a stimulus. So we get a picture of some wind turbines in a landscape. And then we get this question that says, developments such as wind farms can cause land use conflicts. For a named area you've studied, explain why land use conflicts occur there. Now, you do not need to talk about wind farms in your answer, but because you've got wind farms there, it's kind of encouraging you maybe to talk about that, but you don't have to, because the question doesn't actually say that you have to talk about wind farms. What you do have to talk about is, why are conflicts happening in the place that you studied? Now, your answer must start with an area you've studied. So your answer must say, in Loch Lomond. That should be the very first thing I read when reading an answer to this question. What you then need to do is give me 5 conflicts that are happening. And when you give me the conflicts, you must be telling me why those conflicts are happening. So for example, let's take these wind turbines. So imagine we were to build wind turbines in a national park. Well, who's going to be opposed to wind turbines? Well, tourists might be, because they might perceive them as ruining the landscape, and therefore they might be opposed to the building of that. The RSPB, which is the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, they might be against the building of these wind turbines, because wind turbines can kill birds, especially when they're spinning very fast. So that's actually 2 possible reasons why there's a conflict. Now, you'll have studied 3 conflicts in class. You'll have looked at tourism and recreation and how it can be in conflict with farmers, and how energy or renewable energy companies can be in conflict with tourists. And you'll have also looked at one further conflict between industry and locals and farmers. So you'll have quite a bit of knowledge about the kinds of conflicts that exist. The key here is not just telling me about the conflict between the different users, but why there is a conflict. You are explaining why that conflict exists. And it doesn't have to be 5 different conflicts. It could be the same conflict as long as you can give me 2 or 3 reasons for why those people are in conflict with each other. Okay, let's have a look at the last question. Now, this is the one that's worth the most marks. It's a 6-mark question. Before we go into the question, let's just see what we've got. We've got 4 landscapes we're being introduced to, and we've got all of these land uses that happen in these landscapes. And you will have studied a range of these. So you will have looked at forestry, you'll have looked at water storage and supply, you'll have looked at industry, you'll have looked at farming, you've looked at recreation and tourism, and you will have looked at renewable energy. So you've looked at all of these different land uses that happen, and you'll have focused so far on this landscape, the glaciated upland landscape. Right, what's the question? The question says, for a named area you've studied, explain in detail ways in which land use conflicts may be managed. Now, by the end of the course, you will have also looked at coastal landscapes, and you'll have established some possible conflicts in a coastal landscape. But the one that you would always choose will be our main case study, Loch Lomond and the Trossachs. So that would be the first thing you write in Loch Lomond and the Trossachs. What you now need to do is explain ways in which land use conflicts can be managed. Now, it doesn't just have to be one conflict. You can pick any of the 3 conflicts, and you could pick all 3 conflicts. What's important is you talk about the solutions. So what is happening in Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park to help reduce the conflicts? So, for example, you could talk about that the park rangers are using bylaws to restrict where people can camp, and the reason that they're doing that is because campers are leaving a lot of litter behind on the edge of the loch. So that would get you 1 mark. You could talk about other things that are happening, maybe not to do with camping, other conflicts that happen maybe between walkers and footpath erosion and how they're helping to repair paths. Okay. Now, you really need to have a good answer prepared for this. So I would suggest you look at all of the 3 conflicts that we studied in class and look at the solutions and the way they're managed, and be able to give 6 different solutions to problems that you identify in your answer. Okay, so if you have prepared 3 answers, you should be aiming at getting 15 marks, because that's what this little assessment will be worth. Good luck.